I'll talk a little bit, and I'll sort of splice in some work that we're doing at SRI, as well as things that I see and trends that are happening related to robotics, and show how these are overlapping with each other. And one of the things that's really important to understand now is that robotics is really not an independent technology. I don't really think about it that way. It is part of the technology continuum, and that many of the technologies that we associate with robotics, like sensors and actuators and programming, are actually already integrated into many kinds of products that we see that are mainstream and consumer. And so our cell phones, for instance, have many, the power in them relative to robot sensing and control is actually amazing compared to when robotics first emerged. And there was a 60 Minutes episode a few years ago that had me a little bit annoyed, because they started out in the first few minutes trying to follow up on all the hype to get people worried about jobs, and they were calling kiosks in airports robots. They were saying these robot kiosks have displaced workers, and I initially was kind of offended, because I was like, kiosks aren't robots. And then later on I was like, well, if they want to call a kiosk a robot, that's fine. Now there's many more robots in my domain, and I'm fine with that, and that means my cell phone is a robot as well, and that the idea of a robot being part of our society and doing valuable things I think can be more acceptable to people. If you look at where robotics are, though, this physical interface with the world is really the important thing. And so what we've seen to date is that robotics has only had a huge impact in manufacturing and some medical spaces, and we're starting to now see it impinge on other areas, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So first off, if you are watching the robotics industry, there are a number of new companies that are emerging and a number of platforms that are becoming better known. And so what I like to highlight is that mobility, robotic mobility, is really become commodity now, that the hardware related to mobile robot devices is really pretty accessible and pretty inexpensive. And this is why drones, for instance, are really readily available, and you'll see dozens right now of companies based on drone technology for different kinds of applications. And you also have mobile robots being used for delivery in hotels and office environments. You have telepresence robots that allow people to do sort of teleconferencing in a mobile way. But part of the reason there's all these different companies is because the hardware platform is really very accessible. And similar to the computer industry in the 80s, when the hardware became accessible, there was a lot more opportunity to begin to explore the business models, and the technology became more accessible, and therefore many more people could begin to apply it and develop new business models for it. So if we look at some of the work that we're doing in our lab, we're actually going beyond the mobility side and looking more at manipulation. So the manipulation you're used to seeing in factory kinds of applications, and mainly in the auto industry, and now thinking about how that can be applied beyond that domain. And I had mentioned before about the Da Vinci robot. So we've been, over the last few years, building a new kind of platform based on Da Vinci technology. This is a Taurus robot. And the goal of this is to allow a bomb technician to be able to engage with some explosive device and be able to defeat it by disassembling it. Also being able to do things like inspect packages, things that are really not possible with the current bomb defeat robots that are really just kind of big glorified cranes that can move things around but not do anything constructive. And the goal here is to extend the kind of application with this dexterous telemanipulation capability. So it's a robot, but with a human sort of logging in to the robot and extending their capability through it. And up in the upper right-hand corner, you see that we've now begun to look at how we can use that capability for other kinds of applications. So we've seen a lot of researchers trying to solve the problem of folding laundry and doing more domestic tasks. And here we're showing, and this is a real-time solution of a telemanipulator folding laundry. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I think that's a practical way to start. And then in the bottom, I'm showing this is a part from a manufacturing client of ours that right now is 100% manually assembled, and we're showing that we actually are able to assemble it with a robotic device, with a person logging on and doing the thinking, but the physical interaction with the device is happening with the robot. So we're just showing that the robotics technology has the capability to handle the manipulation part, but there's some part of the human knowledge and skill that's not quite solved yet.